Hello and welcome to Blythe Business News. Today I'm joined by Ron Heeks, who is Managing Director of Larvotto Resources. Larvotto is listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, a symbol of LRV. Ron, welcome on the show. It's your first time. Before we get into any detail, give us a very quick overview, please, of Larvotto. What does it do? Where are you?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. We're an Australian-based explorer. We've got a very large 1,000 square kilometre grassroots copper play near Mount Isa in Queensland. We've got a rare earths, lithium and base metals play about 500, 600 square kilometres in Western Australia. We've got a very interesting gold project in New Zealand, but our lead project is the Hillgrove Gold-Antimony mine that we purchased late last year. And that's the largest antimony deposit in Australia and the 8th largest in the world.
Okay, well, let's focus then on the Hillgrove project, the gold and the antimony. Perhaps, for the benefit of some of the viewers and potential investors, let's start with the antimony, because I suspect not many people know much about antimony, what it is, what it's used for. Talk us through that part, and then let's look at the gold, please.
Yeah, sure, Tim. And in 40 years of doing this, it's fair to say I haven't done a lot with antimony. It really has become a metal of the moment. It's traditionally always been used as a fire retardant and other uses, certainly within the military. But the big movement in antimony at the moment is as an additive to the glass in solar panels. And it makes the panel more efficient, and it also hardens the glass. So it does two things at once. And you multiply a sort of 4% efficiency out over trillions of solar panels, and it's very significant. So that has caused the price to move to record highs, and we would expect it to stay up in that sort of range. The ore body that we've got, 1.4 million ounces at 6.1 grams gold equivalent, is about 50-50 economics wise between antimony and gold. So it's a high-grade gold mine in its own right. It's a high-grade antimony mine in its own right. It's traditionally been mined up until 2005, 30 years as an antimony mine with no gold credits. It's previously been mined as a gold mine. We'll be the first ones to mine the gold and the antimony.
So you're talking about mining, so give us a bit of a sense of when do you hope to bring it into production?
Well, the project was mined up until 2022. The company that had it got into all sorts of strife on another project, and it ended up in administration. That's unfortunate for them, but a great story for us. The ore body's basically ready to go. There's 15 kilometres of underground workings in place. There's development drives ready to go. There's a process plant on surface with a replacement value of a couple of $100 million. And we are looking at doubling the capacity of that to take it up to 500,000 tonnes per annum. But everything we need is pretty well in place. So we have to permit a few new things to get back into mining. But between here and the next 12 months, it's a pretty steady progression through pre-feasibility, feasibility, banking the product. And because most things are already in place, it's not hundreds of millions of dollars to bank it. It's a lot simpler task than that.
Okay, you've also recently announced some pretty high-grade drill results from the project. What can you tell us? Give a bit more detail on those results, please.
Well, these ore bodies typically and around the world tend to go to depth. They start off as very high-grade antimony near surface. They have a zone where most of our resources are at the moment. There's about equal weighting, gold and antimony. And deeper down, they tend to progress down into a much higher grade gold zone. The drilling that we've just put out had some spectacular results. I think we won drill hole of the month or something in Australia. 30 metres at 2 ounces, so 64 grams per tonne, and 5 metres at 220 grams per tonne. For these sorts of ore bodies, that's not atypical. Drilling from last year had hits of very similar values, 200s and higher than that. There's a similar ore bodies in Australia, in Victoria, very geologically the same, getting spectacular grades at depth as well. We've drilled those drill holes were the deepest that have come out of the project. There's multiple zones and more than half a dozen other zones that have been historically mined, never drilled at depth, never pushed down to depth. So we would expect those to go deeper as well. So the resource at the moment, 1.5 million tonnes, we think that's nowhere near what's sitting in this field.
All right, so exciting times ahead there. You've also just excuse me. You've also just announced the placement of some shares. You've raised money. What's those funds going to be used for?
Those funds were, we did a very small placement there to allow us to keep exploration and the tasks ahead moving, the pre-feasibility moving. We're in due diligence at the moment to bring in 13 million Oz or 8 million US from Wogan and Excelsior. They're a UK-based offtake group. They're specialist antimony offtakers, and they're funding the project, or they're looking to fund the project via a prepay, and that will give us sufficient funds to move this through to bankable feasibility study and financing when the major project funding comes in. So to have the support of an international offtaker of a very high reputation and specialist in antimony is a great thing for the project.
If that brings us up to date, let's now look to the future a little bit for the final question. What's the headlines in the next few months? What should we be looking out for in terms of news flow coming out of Larvotto?
It'll be the completion of that $13 million of funding. That's non-dilutionary because it's an offtake deal, so we're not having to issue more equity for that. So that's a great deal. There'll be metallurgical results come out. We think we can improve the already good traditional recoveries, which are in the sort of 90% levels for gold and antimony. As we double the size of the plant, we'll have a CapEx study coming out on that as well, pre-feasibility. Within a couple of months, we'd hope to have our initial reserves out. So starting to convert some of those resources into reserves. That'll be a staged process, but I think the first reserve base will be very good, and restarting more drilling on multiple zones at the same time as we progress towards bankable feasibility. Because one, we want to show that the project is economic as it is, but we're very keen to show the upside of the project as well, and get shareholders on the page about what's happening at depth. And the sort of numbers that we're seeing, we would expect more of those, as you do in these ore bodies.
Ron, thanks for being with us today. You must come back and keep us updated as you keep driving this project forward. That was Ron Heeks, who's a Managing Director of Larvotto Resources. Larvotto, as I said, listed on the Australian Stock Exchange with a symbol of LRV. That's it for this edition of Blythe Business News. Thanks for watching.